I'm Lauren Green, and you're in the strategy room. Congressional Republicans are proposing long and short-term alternatives to Obamacare as the Supreme Court begins hearing oral arguments in a case that has the potential to unravel the health care law. Does the GOP finally have a plan that competes with the Affordable Care Act? Joining us to discuss are political strategists Brad Blakeman and Joe Lestingi. So, Joe, let me start with you. Sure. Your take on the Republicans. Do they have a viable alternative to Obamacare?
Well, they say they do, but they still have yet to come out with any details on this. And this is the biggest problem they've had over the past 6 years, is they don't have any alternatives to get them through on this. And they keep bashing the system that is currently in place, but then not offering any solutions. Come June, something's going to happen. Either the court's going to rule with the administration, everything's going to be fine, or the court's going to rule against the administration. And a lot of Republican governors and Republican legislatures are going to have voters that lose their subsidies. While their Democratic states next door, they're going to get their subsidies. So there's going to be a lot of problems that those guys are going to have to deal with. Okay, so Brad, the Supreme Court now hearing the challenge to the current law. Do the Republicans have an alternative to Obamacare if the Supreme Court rules in their favor?
Well, they do, and they have a drastic alternative, and that is to repeal Obamacare. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen while we have Obama in office. And the backup plan would be, let's wait and see what the Supreme Court does. It doesn't make any sense to second guess what the Supreme Court is going to do. And we'll know in short order. The arguments were today. And the long and short of it is Obamacare must be fixed. It's broken. We didn't break it. Republicans didn't pass this terrible piece of legislation. The Democrats did. And it's been litigated now for almost every month that it's been passed. So let's see what the Supreme Court does. The long and short of it is something's got to be done, even if the Supreme Court would uphold these mandates and and the funding scheme of Obamacare. It still must be changed. The question is, how drastic can it be changed while Obama's still in office?
You know, Joe, the idea of this situation in court all boils down to one phrase: an exchange established by the state, and how you interpret that. This is what it's all about. But the Obama administration, it doesn't have an alternative if they don't win this case. Is that right?
Oh, no, that's not true at all. Well, let's be clear. And this is where we're going to talk the politics versus the actual putting this into practice. If the court rules that way, and in that they say that they can't provide those subsidies in those states, yes, the federal government's hands are tied. There's nothing they can do because of the way the law was written. But the solution is very simple. Your state simply sets up an exchange, period. The 4 plaintiffs in this case are from Virginia. They would lose their subsidies. But neighboring Maryland, which has its own exchange, they get to keep their subsidies. So if you're a Republican in one of those states, which most of these states are dominated by Republicans, you have to explain to your voters why you're literally taking money out of, almost literally, taking money out of their pocket while their neighbors in a blue state get the money back. That's going to be a tough argument to make. The state just has to set up its own exchange.
Okay. Brad, is it time for the Republicans to sort of surrender on challenging Obamacare?
Absolutely not. This law is a disaster. and look, I'd rather go to my constituents if I'm a Republican governor and explain why they're getting screwed by the federal government. It wasn't Republicans who created this monstrosity. It was the Democrats. So you can't put it on Republicans that somehow, because the Republican governors were smart enough to understand how bad this law is, that somehow now we're stuck with this law. So let's see what the Supreme Court does. But certainly Obamacare must be fixed. Don't take my word for it. The president even said that it's an imperfect law, and using his language, tweaks have to be done. The question is, how tweakable is the law while the president is still in office?
Well, Joe, let's make some predictions. Let's make some predictions. You know, Joe, could Congress find compromise on any health care fixes?
No, I don't. Well, I mean, on some fixes maybe, but the crux and the bones of this plan are going to stay in place as long as the president's in office. And I think even after the president leaves, this is going to stay in place. So it comes down to money. They're going to see the money go to blue states that have the exchanges. The red states aren't going to get it. And it's all good to talk the rhetoric about needing changes. But when you take money out of their pockets and it actually hits their pocketbook, it's going to make a big difference in their lives.
And Brad, you get the last word.
Well, what Republicans should do is they should, once the Supreme Court rules, is figure out what is in the best interest of the American people, not blue states and red states. What's in the best interest of every state? And if they do it, we'll have to tweak the law. We must do it because as long as Obama's the President of the United States, this law is going to exist. The question is, what happens when he leaves?
All right. I want to thank you very much, Joe and Brad. For more on the fight over Obamacare, stick with FoxNews.com. I'm Lauren Green, and thanks for watching.